everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to learn dual nature of radiation and matter. So this is a very interesting chapter, and before starting this I want to give a little suggestion that please open your NCERT textbooks and watch the lecture, because it will be very easy for you, and you can also underline or highlight whatever you want to do, you can do on your textbooks, so that it will be easier for you when you read it again or later. So without any further ado, let's start the chapter. And if you don't have any NCERT book, then you can also order it online. I have given some links in the description box. So first we have the introduction lines. Here actually this whole introduction is based on what you have read before. Like if you remember the class 11th chapter of chemistry, that is atomic structure. In that chapter you have seen this in the chapter, that summary, like kind of a summary is here, written here, and some concepts are also of physics and chemistry, so both. Okay, so let's start it. The Maxwell's equation of electromagnetism and Hertz experiments on the generation and detection of electromagnetic waves in 1887 strongly established wave nature of light. So in 1887, the wave nature of light was established, and towards the same period at the end of 19th century, experimental investigations on conduction of electricity and electric charge discharge through gases at low temperature in a discharge tube led to many historic discoveries. So this is the most important point, that is the discovery of X-rays by Röntgen in 1895 and of electron by J.J. Thomson in 1897. So X-rays was discovered by whom? It was discovered by Röntgen, and in 1895, and electron was discovered by J.J. Thomson in 1897. So after that, after the discoveries of these two, the milestones came to the atomic structure. Now we understood exactly, yeah, what is atomic structure, the structure of atom we understood, it made very clear. And next is, it was found that at a sufficiently low temperature of about 0.001 mm of mercury column, a discharge took place between the two electrodes on applying the electric field to the gas in a discharge tube. Now, a fluorescent glow appeared on the glass opposite to cathode. I think these concepts might be clear. You might be understanding this thing because you have read it before also. And this fluorescent glow that is appearing, it is actually dependent on different kind of glass. So different types of glass. So here also it is written. See, the color of glow of the glass depended on the type of glass, it being yellowish green for soda glass. See, this is one important point, that what it is, like the color of the glow of the gas is dependent on the type of glass, and yellowish green for soda glass. Now remember this point, okay. And the cause of this fluorescence was attributed to the radiation which appeared to be coming from the cathode. Now this fluorescence attributed to the radiation which appeared to be coming from the cathode. These cathode rays was discovered by 1870 by William Crookes. Okay, we know this point also, that by whom cathode rays was discovered? It was discovered by William Crookes, and it is in 1870. Now, after that, later in 1879, suggested that these rays consisted of streams of fast moving negatively charged particles, and this was confirmed by J.J. Thomson. This hypothesis was confirmed by J.J. Thomson. By applying mutually perpendicular electric and magnetic fields across the discharge tube, J.J. Thomson was first to determine. Now he applied what? He applied electric and magnetic fields on the both the sides. When he applied the electric and magnetic fields across the discharge tube. And after that, what he determined? He determined the charge to mass ratio, or it is also known as specific charge, or the E by M ratio of the cathode ray particles. They were found to travel with speeds ranging from about 0.1 to 0.2 times the speed of light. And what is the speed of light? Here is a small mistake, that the speed of light is 3 into 10 to the power 8, not 108, it's not 108, it's 10 to the power 8 meter per second. Okay, so that's it. And the presently accepted value of E by M, here also this is this 10 this is 1.76 into 10 to the power 11 coulomb per kg. Okay, so here is a small mistake, just to make it correction, or you can also look at your NCERT book, right? And further, the value of E by M was found to be independent of nature of the material or metal used as the cathode emitter or the gas introduced in the discharge tube. This observation suggested the universality of the cathode ray particles. Okay. Now, after these observations, we understood that the universality of the cathode ray particles. Next, let's move further, and here it is written that around the same time in 1887, it was found that certain metals, when irradiated by ultraviolet light, emitted negative charge. Now, when some ultraviolet light was irradiated, this emitted negatively charged particles having small speeds. Okay, it had small speeds. Also, certain metals, when heated to high temperature, were found to emit negatively charged particles. So, when some metals are heated, then it resulted in emitting the negatively charged particles. So, if you are not okay, the value of E by M of these particles was found to be same as that of the cathode particles. Okay, so let me tell this point, that if you're not understanding these lines now, then you just don't worry, you will understand it later on the chapter. Here all the topics are explained very nicely, because this is the introduction part, right? If you're getting the points, it's well and good, but if you're not getting, then just wait for the just wait and watch the lecture, you will understand it gradually. Okay, and these observations thus established that all these particles, although produced under different conditions, were identical in nature. And what happened here, that if the cathode ray particles, we understood these things, that when we are providing, if there is a metal and we are providing high temperature to it, so it is emitting the negatively charged particles. And do you know what is the negatively charged particles? Yes, correct, it is electrons. Very good. So that's electrons are emitted when high temperature is provided to any metal. And by this, what is happening, this is that is the negatively charged particles. And it is also, one thing is here mentioned, that the value of E by M of these particles are found to be same for cathode ray particles. So these observations thus establish that all these particles, although produced under different conditions, these particles are produced in different conditions. This is produced by ultraviolet rays. Here we have studied here at the top lines. So what is that exactly? That is identical. And J.J. Thomson in 1897 named these particles as electrons. I said that before also, that negatively charged particles are known as electrons. Okay, and suggested that they were fundamental universal constituents of matter. And suggested that they were fundamental universal constituents of matter. For his epoch-making discovery of electron, though his theoretical and experimental investigations on conduction of electricity by gases, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1906. So, he got the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1906, just highlight this point. Okay. And in 1913, the American physicist R.A. Millikan, this is another scientist, I think you have learned these all in your chemistry, that atomic structure, that chapter. Okay, the American physicist R.A. Millikan in 1868 to 1953 performed the pioneering oil drop experiment for the precise measurement of the charge on an electron. He found that a charge on an oil droplet was always an integral multiple of an elementary charge. Now, he found out the charge also, that is 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Okay, this is the charge. I think let me write it again here. That is 1.6 into 10 to the power 602. Okay, 602. Just write it like that. And for we just okay. Here this is okay. This is 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. That's it. And when we are writing this point, when we are doing some kind of like examples, questions, when we are solving questions, we can use this as 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. That's it. Okay. And for precise, you will tell that it is 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Next is from the values of charge E and specific charge E by m, the mass of the electron could be determined. I think you might be knowing these things, right? This is very simple. Now let's go to electron emission. This is really interesting. This is going to be, the electron emission, what it is exactly, that metals have free electrons, right? Metals have free electrons, and free electrons means that is negatively charged particles, and they are always in a hurry to escape from the metal. Okay, if you will not let me just take an example first, then just forget about this. Okay, let me take an example and then you will understand what exactly I'm going to tell. So okay, so let's come to the black screen and make a house. See, look at this house. Just forget about electron emission, anything. Just look at this example. Now there is a house. There lived two boys, and let's name them Santa, another one is Banta. Okay, so it is like, okay, they were best friends, as you know. And what happened one day, this is Santa, okay, this is Santa and this is Banta. So one day what happened, Santa and Banta had a great fight, and this boy, this Santa, he wanted to leave the house. Okay, they used to live in one house, and this boy wanted to leave the house. But Banta, he don't want, that means he didn't want that his friend to leave the house, right, as they were best friends. And then what he did, he just tried to pull him back. He tried to pull him back. And when he was just about to leave the house, he just tried to pull him. And after that, what happened, this Santa, this again came back to the house, right, and again they lived happily, right? This only happened. But what happened, now let's just think about another scenario where Santa's father came. Okay, his father came, and he knew that actually they both had a great fight, and he don't want that his son to live there. So for that reason, he just wanted to take him back with him. Now this is father of Santa. Okay, so he wanted to take him back. So now what will happen? Now Santa will be with his father. He will be out of this house, because father has more rights and he will take him obviously. So father has more power, right, than his friend. So his friend is now left alone in the house, and Santa is with now the father. So this is exactly just like, now let's connect this with our electron emission subtopic. Okay, so what is this? Let me clear the whole screen. Now just think about this situation, that there is a metal and there is negatively charged particles, and there is also positively charged particles. So negatively charged particles are known as electrons, and the positively charged particles are known as protons. That's it. It's very easy. I think you might be knowing this thing. And this negatively charged particles are the Santa, and positively charged particles is Banta. So that's the thing. And this is the thing that this Santa will, this negatively charged particles are actually free electrons inside a metal. So they will always try to leave the metal. This negatively charged particles, or the electrons, always try to leave the metal, but the positively charged particle will pull it back, and it will be again situated in this. It will be all again situated with this. These are connected, right? The positively charged particles will pull the negatively charged particles. That's the thing. And whenever there will be any sort of external source like heat energy, thermal energy, that is same thing, the heat energy, thermal energy, okay, that if that will apply, that we will apply to a metal, or any kind of electric energy, or like light energy, then what will happen? The electrons will gain that energy, and it will have more energy, its own energy plus the source energy, and then it will leave it freely, it will leave it easily. And this positive charge means that the energy required to pull him will be less than the energy that is acquired by from the source plus its energy. So at the end, this negatively charged particle will be eliminated, or it will just leave the it will be emitter. Okay, that's the thing. So now let's read the text. What is written in the text? Now here it is written that we know that metals have free electrons. Okay, see, metals have free electrons. Negatively charged particles, that are negatively charged particles, are responsible for their conductivity. Now, however, the free electrons cannot normally escape out of the metal, that we have seen now only. Okay, I hope you are understanding the text easily now, as I have understood it as a form of example, right? And if an electron attempts to come out of the metal surface acquires a positive charge and pulls the electron back to the metal. So, as happened in the case of Santa Marta. So, the free electron is thus held inside the metal surface by the attractive forces of the ions, and consequently the electron can come out of the metal surface only if it has got sufficient energy to overcome the attractive pull, right? If it will get some kind of external source or something like that, then it can easily be emitted, and a certain minimum amount of energy is required to be given to the electron to pull it out from the surface of the metal. So, a minimum amount of energy is required so that the electron can be escape, the electron can escape from the metal, right? And this minimum energy, now what will tell to this minimum energy? This is known as work function. Okay, this is the work function of the metal. It is generally denoted by phi naught or phi 0. You enter like this, like phi. Okay, let me write it here. This is known as phi naught. Okay, so that's it. And here phi naught and measured in electron volt. The unit is what? Electron volt. So, work function's unit is electron volt, and it is generally denoted by phi naught. 1 electron volt is the energy gained by an electron when it has been accelerated by a potential difference by 1 volt. So, 1 electron volt is equal to 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 joules. Okay. And here also in this orange box there is some more information is written, that is this unit of energy is commonly used in atomic nuclear physics. Okay. So, that is what here the energy is written is used in the atomic and nuclear physics. The work function phi naught depends on the properties. So, work function depends on properties of metal. Okay, just remember this point and also underline it in your book, that the work function depends on properties of metal and nature of its surface. This both, it depends on both that nature of the surface and properties of the metal. The values of work function of some metals are given in the table. We will just after this I will just go through that table, and these values are approximate as they are very sensitive to surface impurities. Note from the table that the work function of the platinum, see the work function of the platinum is 5.65 electron volts, and lowest work function is for cesium, that is 2.14 electron volts. Okay. So, now let us move towards this table. Everyone just look at here, and what here it is mentioned is that just if you want see here it is written that cesium, this cesium has 2.14 which is the least work function, and platinum has 5.65 electron volts which is the most work function. Okay, so if you will ask me that what we need to, what's the most important thing that we will remember from this table, that is this thing, You just don't need to remember all this. If you want, then you can, but if anything that is the least important, means the most important thing from this table that you have to remember, that is this, that cesium, the least work function and the most work function value, that is platinum and cesium. Okay, just remember these two, and if you want, you can also remember everything. That's okay. This is the just most important thing. Okay. Next is the minimum energy required for the electron emission from the metal surface can be supplied to the free electron by any physical processes, that I have said it before also. Like the thermionic emission is what? That's the thermal energy that we are providing to the metal, that was thermionic emission, and by providing that heat energy, the electrons are getting out. So that emission, that electrons getting out, that emission is known as thermionic emission. Okay, like that field emission and then photoelectric emission, that just the same thing. Like okay, let me just explain you what is thermionic. Thermionic emission means by suitable heating, sufficient thermal energy can be imparted to the free electrons to enable them to come out of the metal. So this after gaining, the electrons used to gain the thermal energy, and then they used to, they will just go out of the, or they will just emit from the metal. So that thing, that process is known as, that physical process is known as thermionic emission. Okay, next is field emission. What is field emission? Field emission is the strong electric field that is provided in the order of 108 volt. Sorry, this is not that. This is 10 to the power 8 volt. I think it might be not visible. Okay, 10 to the power 8 volt per meter. Okay, so that is the, that's the order that we need to provide to a metal, so that electrons can be pulled out of the metal as in the spark plug. Okay, next is photoelectric emission. What is photoelectric emission? Photoelectric emission is what, when we provide light to the to the metal, and then electrons will get out of the will be emitted from the metal, that will be known as photoelectric emission. And this the photo generated or the light generated electrons are known as photoelectrons. Okay, so anything like this thing point also before, like in photosynthesis in biology, what is photo means light in terms of biology, also in physics also. So the terms used in science of photo, that means it's light. So anything that is a light generated electrons are known as photoelectrons. So in this whole chapter, you will only study about this photoelectric emission. We will study more about this only in this chapter. So that's the thing. I hope you have understood these points nicely. Now let's move forward. Here it is written photoelectric effect. So let me tell you that this subtopic has 3 scientists who are doing the same kind of work, similar work, and this will be very clearer to you if you will look at the table. Not in this. Okay, I will tell you after this Hallberg's and Lenard's observation. There you have to look at the table given in the page number 390, figure number 11.1. In that figure you will understand that. Okay, now no problem. Now this is Hertz's observation. Now let's just study this one. Afterwards, when I will go to that Lenard's observation, we will look at that table. Okay. Now first is the phenomenon of photoelectric emission was discovered by in 1887 by Heinrich Hertz. Now he lived in he lived 1857 and died, he born on that is in 1857 to 1894. Okay, that's the thing. He died in 1894 and he was born in 1857. So during his electromagnetic wave experiments, in this experimental investigation on the production of electromagnetic waves by means of a spark discharge. Now Hertz observed that a high voltage spark across the detector loop were enhanced when the emitter plate was illuminated by ultraviolet light from an arc lamp. Lights shining on the metal surface somehow facilitated the escape of free charged particles which we now know as electrons. Okay. So that's the thing. That time it was not known that electrons, something electrons exist. They know that electrons to be negatively charged particles. Okay. So when light falls on a metal surface, some electrons near the surface absorb enough energy from the incident radiation to overcome the attraction of the positive ions in the material of the surface. After gaining sufficient energy from the incident light, the electrons escape from the surface of the metal into the surrounding space. So that example that I have showed you, that similar thing, only you have to think that that example was done by a light. Okay, that father just replaced it by with the lights. Okay, so after gaining the light energy, the electrons are getting emitted from the metal surface, that is only mentioned here, and he just found that thing only. Okay, so next is let's move forward and go to this, that Hallberg's and Lennard's observation. These observations are little bit enhanced from that. So Wilhelm Hallberg and Philip Lennard investigated the phenomenon of photoelectric emission in detail during 1886 to 1902. So Lennard in 1862 to 1947 he lived, and he observed that when ultraviolet radiations were allowed to fall on the emitter plate of an evacuated glass tube enclosing two electrodes metal surface metal plates, current flows in the circuit. Now this thing you can actually look at the diagram that I have mentioned before, that 390 page, there is a diagram, figure 11.1. you can just look at it and you can understand what exactly it is telling. But if you are not getting it, then just don't worry, I will just explain it further in the further slides. Okay. So now what happened here, he observed that when ultraviolet radiations are allowed to fall on the emitter plate. Now what is the emitter plate? The emitter plate is that C1, that C plate, and that is the emitter plate of an evacuated glass tube. When the glass tube is evacuated, so that in the two electrodes, the metal surface, the current is flowing from that. So we understood from this that when ultraviolet is provided and current is flowing in the circuit, and when ultraviolet is not provided, when it is stopped, then current flow is also getting stopped. So that's the thing, and these observations indicate that when ultraviolet radiations fall on the emitter plate C, electrons are ejected from it, which are attracted towards the positive collector plate A. So you know, you have understood till now that plate A is the positive charge and plate C is the negative charge, from where electrons are emitted, and from A, in the plate A, as it is a positive charge, as you know that electrons will get attracted towards it. So plate A is just collecting the positive electrons. Okay. So that's the thing, and the electrons flow through the evacuated glass tube, resulting in the current flow. Thus, light falling on the surface of the emitter causes, now just if you have not, if you have not underlined anything, just underline this part, that thus light falling on the surface of the emitter causes current in the external circuit. And Hallberg and Lennard studied how this photocurrent varied with collector plate potential and with frequency and intensity of incident light. And now further experiments will understand by Hallberg it was done. Hallberg in 1888 undertook the study further. He actually did some advanced thing. That what he did, he connected a negatively charged zinc plate to an electroscope, and then he observed that zinc plate lost its charge when it was illuminated by ultraviolet light. Further, the uncharged, then he replaced it with the uncharged zinc plate, and it became positively charged when it was irradiated by ultraviolet light. Now, positive charge on a positively charged zinc plate was found to be further enhanced when it was illuminated by ultraviolet light. So, from these observations, what he concluded? He concluded that negatively charged particles were emitted from zinc plate under the action of ultraviolet light. So, from all these experiments, we understood that negatively charged particles are getting emitted when we are providing ultraviolet light. Okay, that's the thing. Next is after the discovery of electron in 1897, it became evident that the incident light. Now just mark the things that till these experiments, this Hallwalls, Linear experiment, and the Hilwich, this Hertz experiments, you know, that time the electrons were not discovered. Okay, and afterwards, when electrons were discovered in 1897, then these things became evident. Okay, and incident light causes electrons light causes electrons to be emitted from the emitter plate. Due to negative charge, the emitted electrons are pushed towards the collector plate by the electric field. And Hallwalls and Leonard also observed that when ultraviolet light fell on the emitter plate, no electrons were emitted, and when the frequency of the incident light was smaller than a certain minimum value. And this is an important point, just remember this point, that any kind of light, when you are when you are putting on an emitter plate, it will not emit the electrons, not like that, it will not work like that. We have to provide the light of certain frequency so that it will do, and that a certain minimum value frequency, that thing is known as threshold frequency. Like in that case, we have provided that ultraviolet light. Okay, that's another kind of frequency. And then this minimum frequency depends on the nature of the material of the emitter plate. This minimum frequency, this threshold frequency, this depends on the nature of the material. Like you will just see these things, that it was found that certain metals like zinc, cadmium, magnesium, these are this only responded to the ultraviolet light having short wavelength to cause electron emission from the surface. But in case of alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, cesium, and rubidium, they are sensitive even to visible light. So they are sensitive, they are very sensitive metals. So that's the thing. And all these photosensitive substances emit electrons when they are illuminated by light. So after the discovery of electrons, these electrons were termed as photoelectrons. I have explained this before also, that after afterwards, when electrons were discovered, these electrons that this photo electrons are emitted, the electrons which are emitted from when the photo or the light is given, that is known as photoelectrons. Okay, the phenomenon is called photoelectric effect, and the phenomenon, the process, that is known as photoelectric effect. Okay. Next point, next subtopic is about the experimental study of photoelectric effect. So what we will study here is the diagram. It's completely based on the diagram. Just look at that diagram, that figure 11.1. So this arrangement is used for the experimental study of the photoelectric effect. So we can see here is a quartz window, here is a source, here is a photosensitive plate, and here is a metal plate which has positive charge. It can also be negative charge. Due to this commutator, we can change this, we can change it, the phase or the potentials, we can change the polarity of the plates. And we have also one battery. Okay, so and this C plate is the emitter, this is known as emitter, and this A plate, this is known as collector. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, let me explain you bit by bit. So first thing which is written in your textbook, look at your textbook, or you can also look at the diagram, anything you can do. So it consists of an evacuated glass or quartz tube. So this is made up of quartz or glass tube which have photosensitive plate C, as I have said you, and another metal plate A. Monochromatic light from the source S of sufficiently short wavelength passes through the window W and falls on the photosensitive plate C emitter, which is the emitter, right? And a transparent quartz window is sealed onto the glass tube, which permits for ultraviolet radiation to pass through it and irradiate the photosensitive plate C. The electrons are emitted by the plate C and are collected by the plate A, which is the collector, right? And by the electric field created by the battery maintains the potential difference between the plate C and A. it can be varied. So we can also change the potential difference, right? The polarity of the plates C and A can be reversed by a commutator. So we can make this A plate negative, or also it can be made as positive. So we can change the polarities, and thus the plate A can be maintained at a desired positive or negative potential with respect to plate emitter C. So when the collector plate A is positive with respect to the emitter plate C, the electrons are attracted to it. So if when this A plate, this is positive and this is negative, then obviously that thing, that when a positive positive attracts negative, right? That's the thing. So that only happens as this the ultraviolet rays or any kind of light, when falling on the C plate, it will emit the electrons, and after that what will happen, it will be collected by the A plate. That's the thing. And then what will happen is that the emission of electrons causes flow of electric current in the circuit. The potential difference between the emitter and collector plates is measured by the voltmeter. See, here is the voltmeter. This will be that will, we can measure the potential difference between the emitter and the collector plates by the use of this only. And the resulting photocurrent, the photocurrent flowing in the circuit can be measured in the microammeter. Here is a microammeter. We can also measure the current from this. We will not tell it as only current, we will tell it photocurrent. Okay, that's the thing. And next, here it is written that the photoelectric current can be increased or decreased by varying the potential of collector plate A with respect to the emitter plate C. So we can also change that. And next is the intensity and frequency of the incident light can be varied, so as can the potential difference V between the emitter C and the collector A. So how can we do this? We can use this experimental arrangement by with we can study the variation of photocurrent with what, like with intensity of radiation. Here it is written, see, intensity of radiation, frequency of incident radiation, potential difference between the plates A and C, and the nature of the material of plate C. That's the thing. So to study the variation of the photocurrent, we can do all these things with these things, and then the light of different frequencies can be used by putting appropriate colored filter. How can we change the frequencies? The answer is here. See, we can change the frequencies by what? By putting appropriate colored filter or colored glass in the path of light falling on the emitter C. And then the intensity can be changed by what? By, we can also change it by the distance of light source. So if we will take it far away, then the intensity will be less, and when we will bring it closer, then the intensity will be more. That's the thing, when the light source. Okay, and now let's move on to the next slide. Here it is written that the glass in the path, see, glass in the path of light falling on the emitter C, the intensity of light is varied by changing the distance of the light source from the emitter, what I said before. So that's the thing. Next, we are here in the these topics are really important, and as we if we'll understand these things, then it will be, these are some important, like derivations we can also understand by these. Some important graphs are also there in this subtopic. Okay, so the first thing is here is that effect of intensity of light on photocurrent. So this is all based on the relation between the, like, intensity on photocurrent or the frequencies on photocurrent. So we will learn all these things. So first we are going to learn the effect of intensity of light on the photocurrent. So the collector A is maintained at a positive potential with respect to emitter C. Okay, the collector A is maintained at a positive potential with respect to emitter C, so that electrons ejected from C are attracted towards the collector A. So here, collector A is maintained at the positive, A is positive, which was written there also. The commutator that we had that in the diagram, if you can see it from your book, that the commutator can be, we can change the polarities, right, with the use of that. But here what is done here now, A is kept positive and C is kept negative, that's the thing. And keeping the frequency of the incident radiation and the accelerating potential fixed, the intensity of the light is varied and the resulting photoelectric current is measured each time. So here what is happening, whenever we are considering, what we are considering in this topic, we are considering the effect of intensity on light on current. So just understand this thing, that whenever we are considering one single criteria, so we are considering that only. We will not consider what is happening to the frequency or something like that, like because we will just think that everything else are fixed, only the thing which is we are focusing on, that is only varied. Like here in this case, the intensity of light is varied now. Here it is written only, see, the intensity of the light is varied and resulting photoelectric current is measured each time. So it is found that photocurrent increases linearly with the intensity of incident light. See, you can also see and look at the graph, and you can understand that whenever we are increasing the intensity of light, the photoelectric current is also increasing, and that is linear. So from this we can understand that photoelectric current is directly proportional to the intensity of light, right? So that's the thing. See, here it is also written that the photocurrent is directly proportional to the number of photoelectrons emitted per second, and from this we can understand that the number of photoelectrons emitted per second is directly proportional to the intensity of incident radiation. That's it. I hope you all have understood these things. And this is very simple actually, the effect of intensity. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is effect of potential on photoelectric current. So we know that we have to first keep, see here it is written also, that we have to first keep the plate A at some positive, the same case that we have done it before, the commutator, we need to put A as positive charge and C as negative charge. Okay, so that's the thing, and here electrons will be emitted and then A will attract them. So with light of fixed frequency and fixed intensity, we next vary the positive potential of plate A gradually and measure the resulting photocurrent each time. Now here what we are doing, we are keeping the potential as positive potential, we are just increasing in the positive side, and all the rest of the things like the intensity or the frequency, we have kept it fixed. So it is found that the photoelectric current increases with increase in photo accelerating of the positive potential. So we are we have made it positive potential while increasing in the accelerating by positive. So what is happening, the photoelectric current is also increasing, and next what will happen, at some stage of a certain positive potential of plate A, all the emitted electrons are collected by the plate A and the photoelectric current becomes maximum. So what is happening here, when we have increased the potential to towards the positive, we are accelerating in the positive side. So what is happening is that all the electrons are collected by the plate A, and when all the electrons are collected, no more electron is left to be collected, then what is happening, it has reached, the photoelectric current has reached to its maximum, or it has become saturated now. So if then afterwards we will increase the accelerating potential further to this positive side, then the photocurrent does not increase. That's the thing, it's very simple, right? So now what will happen, it's like very common sense type of thing, like yes, after every electron has reached to the plate A, so now no more electron is left to be reached, so it has become its maximum and it has been saturated. So now if we further increase the photocurrent, means that potential, then we will not, the photocurrent will not increase. That's the thing. Now this maximum value of photoelectric current is called saturation current. Okay. So this maximum value where no more photoelectric current will happen. So this will known as saturation current. Saturation current corresponds to the case when all the photoelectrons emitted by the emitter plate C reach the collector plate A. Now we will apply, now we will do another thing. What we will do? We will apply a negative or a retarding potential to the plate A. With respect to the plate C, and make it increasingly negative gradually. Now that time what we did in this, we just increased it positively. Now what we are doing? We are doing to its we are increasing negatively. So that's the thing. Now what will happen? Now we will, when we will do it a negative potential to the plate A, when this is done, then the polarity is reversed. The electrons are repelled and only the most energetic electrons are able to reach the collector A. See, here it is written that and only the most energetic electrons are able to reach the collector A. The photocurrent is found to decrease rapidly until it drops to 0 at a certain sharply defined critical value of negative potential V naught on the plate A. So what will happen? And do you know one thing also, that all the electrons doesn't have, means all the electrons doesn't have the same kind of energy. Some might be having a high energy, some might be having a low energy. So that will be until that time, the last, the most energetic electron will reach to the plate C. That time we have to, like keep it a negative. So that will be the last one, that will be known as stopping potential. I will tell it later. See, here it is written that for a particular frequency of incident radiation, the minimum negative retarding potential V naught given to the plate A, for which the photocurrent stops or becomes 0, is called cutoff or stopping potential. That's the thing. And the interpretation of the observation in terms of photoelectrons is straightforward. All the photoelectrons emitted from the metal do not have the same energy, and electric current is 0 when the stopping potential is sufficient to repel even the most energetic photoelectrons with the maximum kinetic energy, that is K max. So what you have understood till now here, see here you can look at this, that the minimum minimum negative or the retarding potential V naught given to the plate A, for which the photocurrent stops or becomes 0, is called the cutoff or stopping potential. And this stopping potential will be like, see here it is written that we don't have the similar kind of, same energy with everyone. So photoelectric current is 0 when the stopping potential is sufficient to repel. When the stopping potential is sufficient to repel the most energetic photoelectrons. So the most energetic photoelectrons need to be, like it to be gone to the plate C. So that will happen, and that time that will be the stopping potential, the highest stopping potential, and that is only known as maximum kinetic energy, or K max. Okay. See here it is written. Next line is here. See, K max. K max is equal to E V naught. So which is electron volts. So we can now just a minute. Yes. So we can now repeat this experiment with incident radiation of the same frequency but of higher intensity, like I2 and I3. So I3, this intensity is more than I2, and I2, this intensity is more than I1. So we note that the saturation currents are now found to be at higher values. This shows that more electrons are being emitted per second, proportional to the intensity of the incident radiation. But the stopping potential remains the same as that of the that for the incident radiation of intensity I1. So let's go to that graph again. Yes, see here. Here, as you can see, the intensities of I1 is more than I2, and I2 intensity is more than I1. So most intense is what? I3. So the I3 this one. So after when we are increasing the intensities, the photocurrent is increasing. Okay, and but when we are looking at the stopping potential, the three are in one point only. So it means stopping potential is not dependent on the intensities, on how intense you are putting the light. It is not dependent on that. Okay, so it is independent of intensities. we can see next points also. Yes, here it is written that thus for given frequency of the incident radiation, the stopping potential is independent of its intensity. In other words, the maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons depends on the light source and the emitter plate material, but is independent of the intensity of incident radiation. So, the photoelectrons depends on the light source, as I have shown you there in the graph, but it is but the stopping potential, it's not dependent on the intensity. Okay, that's it. Now let's see this. Yeah, the maximum kinetic energy is actually dependent on the light source, but it is not dependent. It is independent on the intensities. That's it. Now let's move further. Effect of frequency of incident radiation on stopping potential. So, okay, let's see this thing. We will read what is the effect of frequency of incident radiation on stopping potential. What we will understand here is that, see here, these are the different in frequencies, right? So we will understand what is exactly happening to the stopping potential. See, as you can see, it has different stopping potentials, so it is dependent on this. Okay, so we now study the relation between the frequency V of the incident radiation and the stopping potential V naught. We suitably adjust the same intensity of the light radiation at various frequencies and study the variation of the photocurrent with collector plate potential. So the resulting variation is shown here. See, as you can see in this graph. Okay, so we obtain different values of stopping potential, but the same value of the saturation current for incident radiation of different frequencies. So, the energy of the emitted electrons depends on the frequency. See, the energy of the emitted electron depends on the frequency here, and of the incident radiation. The stopping potential is more negative for higher frequencies incident radiation. So, stopping potential is more for this, this is a higher frequency, right? The V3 is um, more than V2, and V2 is more than V1. So, V1 has least frequency and V3 has more frequency, most frequency. So, that is the thing, and here we can see that the the stopping potential is now here dependent. It is negative. It is more negative for higher frequencies. That is the thing. Okay. Next is here it is written one thing another, that the stopping potentials are in the order of this. I have said you before also. If the frequencies are in the order V3 more than V2 more than V1, this implies that the greater the frequency of the incident light, greater is the maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons. So, consequently, we need greater retarding potential to stop them completely. So, if we plot I hope you have understood this thing. What is this? See, greater is the maximum energy. See, greater is the okay, let me change the color of the pen. Yes, so greater is the maximum see, here it is written only the greater the frequency of the incident radiation. Yeah, so greater is the frequency of the incident radiation, greater is the maximum kinetic energy. Okay, so we understood this thing. For that reason, as the kinetic energy is maximum in this case, so we need more more retarding stopping potential, more V naught we need. So that's the thing. For that reason only, more frequency needs more stopping potential, or more, yeah, that's the thing, retarding energy, retarding potential. So if we plot a graph between the frequency of incident radiation and corresponding stopping potential for different metals, so we understood that this is, if this is more, then this will be more. So as we can understand here, so it will, graph will be linear. See, the graph is linear here. So it means for different metals we get a straight line. See, here it is written a straight line. And what this graph shows? This graph shows that the stopping potential V naught varies linearly with the frequency of incident radiation for a given photosensitive material. There exists a certain minimum cutoff frequency V naught for which the stopping potential is 0. That is it. Now let us move forward, and this point, see, these are the last points. Like here it is written that these observations have two implications. What are the implications? The first implication is that the maximum, see here it is written that see, maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons varies linearly with the frequency of the incident radiation, but is independent of its intensity. Okay, that is the thing. And next is, for a frequency V of incident radiation lower than the cutoff frequency V naught, no photoelectric emission is possible even if the intensity is large. Okay. So, for a frequency of incident radiation lower than the cutoff frequency, no photoelectric emission is possible. So, no photoelectron is possible even if the intensity is very large. So, it is not dependent on intensity at all. So, next is this minimum cutoff frequency V naught is called threshold frequency, and next is it is different for different materials. We have metals, and this is we have seen this before also, and different photosensitive materials respond differently to light, like selenium. See here another example, selenium is more sensitive than zinc or copper. The same photosensitive substances gives different response to light of different wavelengths. For example, ultraviolet light gives rise to photoelectric effect in copper, while green or red light does not. Okay. So, that is the thing. And next is, here it is written that note that in all the above experiments, it is found that if frequency of the incident radiation exceeds the threshold frequency, the photoelectric emission starts instantaneously without any apparent time lag. So, even if the incident radiation is very dim, it is now known that emission starts in a time of the order of like 10 to the power minus 9 seconds or less. Okay. So, hope these all are clear, and this slide is all about like a summary. Okay, you can see that is also written in your NCERT textbook, these lines. So, we now summarize the experimental features and observations described in the section. So, what we will summarize, what we have understood till now, we will just summary. It's a kind of a summary. Okay. So, for a given photosensitive material and frequency of incident radiation above the threshold frequency, the photoelectric current is directly proportional to the intensity of incident light. Okay, that's the thing. Next is, for a given photosensitive material, the frequency of the incident radiation saturation current is found to be proportional to the intensity of its incident radiation, whereas the stopping potential is independent of its intensity. I said this before also. And next point is, for a given photosensitive material, there exists a certain minimum cutoff frequency of the incident radiation, which is called the threshold frequency, below which no emission of photoelectrons takes place. So, we need a minimum amount of frequency, and below, if we will not give that minimum amount, then no photoelectrons will take place. That is the thing. No emission of the photoelectrons will take place, no matter how intense the incident light is. So, it does not depend on the intensity of the light. Next is, above the threshold frequency, the stopping potential, or equivalently the maximum kinetic energy of the emitted photoelectrons, increases linearly with the frequency of the incident radiation, but is independent of its intensity. So, that is the thing. So, energy of the emitted, see here it is written, the maximum kinetic energy of the emitted photoelectrons increases linearly with the frequency of the incident radiation, but is independent of its intensity. That is the thing. Next is, the photoelectric emission is an instantaneous process without any apparent time lag. which is 10 to the power minus 9 or less. So even when the incident radiation is made exceedingly dim, that's the thing. So photoelectric emission is a very instantaneous process. So without any apparent time, like 10 to the power minus, let me write here, yeah. So 10 to the power minus 9 seconds or less. So it will take that much time. So even when the incident radiation is very dim, it is made extremely dim. That also, but after that also, if it is provided with perfect frequency, then the photoelectric emission will be like, it will be it is very instantaneous process. Okay, it's just an instantaneous process. So it is done, before 10 to the power 9 seconds. Okay, that's the thing. So that's it. I hope you've understood all this. I know that the whole chapter is not completed. Now this is the part 1 of this chapter. I will also bring one part 2. So please like, share and comment down below if you have any doubts or how you liked the chapter. And thanks for watching. And please, I have taught you up to till this. So please, again read this. Read it twice, thrice. If you are not understanding read it thrice also. But read. Okay, read from NCERT. I have just did half of the chapter. I will do full in the next part. I will bring another part of this chapter. So okay. So thank you. Thanks for watching and keep reading.